Hey guys, what's going on tonight? Welcome back to the Science Fictionary podcast. Andrew and Marisha here tonight. I know David. We tried, but
OS.
David is always too busy for us on odd nights.
Got a girlfriend. Went and got him a life. It's real nerve. Real nerve. If you're listening, David, I hope you know that we think you have real nerve going and getting a life.
Hey guys, well, I did get a haircut. I think they cut like 5 pounds of hair off.
Yeah, I think they did.
It's like when I go to my the person that cuts my hair, it's always a surprise what it looks like when I get out of the chair.
Yeah.
It's never
And
the
she's
same.
been cutting your hair for like 20 years.
Yeah, and it's never the same
Yeah,
twice.
it really isn't.
So
Which is fine.
Whatever.
Always an adventure. You always knew that, like, when you were going to South America, it was going to get cut real short. But other than that,
yeah, when I go to the jungle in South America, I cut it so short that I don't have to. I can wash it with a water bottle.
Good plan.
All right, so we're going to talk Miss Marvel. I see we've got Ro and Chantel in the chat. Thank y'all for joining us, and Don, thanks for at least stopping in long enough to say hello before you went off to bed.
Well, there seems to be a consensus that I'm noticing in the chat. The consensus seems to be positive.
Yeah, no, everybody that's in the chat really liked it. I mean, we'll see if anybody else shows up. I'm really curious to see what everybody. I haven't been able to keep up the last few days with a lot of the other shows with what everybody's saying about it. So I am curious, and it's definitely geared for a younger demographic, which I think is great because they haven't done a lot of that.
No, they haven't. And especially like Moon Knight was straight up dark. Yeah. Like it was like Andrew and I watched all the Moon Knight episodes before they actually came out, just because we needed to know like how much
the kids watched them.
Yeah, before the kids watched them. Just because we needed to know like how much of a heads up do we need to give everybody. And there were a couple we were like, look, you might not enjoy this episode. They watched them all anyway. But yeah, it's nice to have something that you can I can turn off my filter, my like what's the word? Sensor. I can turn off my mom's sensor brain and just kind of sit back and just enjoy it.
So. Hey Nicole, thanks for joining us tonight. But yeah, I mean, they definitely geared this show for a younger audience, which I mean, they needed to do that. We haven't really done that yet. And I think that it's great that they did that. But like Rose saying, like, they're doing a lot of creative things. If you're familiar with any of the works of Edgar Wright, like this show feels like something that Edgar Wright would have made.
Just a little more G-rated. I don't think I've ever seen Edgar Wright do anything that was
well, I mean, like Scott Pilgrim's not that bad.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's a
but it's made for adults.
Scott Pilgrim?
Or at least
older Scott Pilgrim's made for like older teens and young adults, yeah.
And I was thinking, because I've always felt like the sign of good entertainment for kids is that parents can enjoy it. And I feel like we've had lots of things on Disney Plus that have been for adults and kids could also watch them. And I feel like this is kind of the reverse. It's a show that's primarily geared to kids, but is still well done enough that the parents can enjoy it too.
Right.
And like I said, I feel like that's sort of the hallmark of good entertainment, is that it doesn't have to be just for the demographic. It's primary demographic, right? It's got a broad range of people that can enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and the other great thing they've done kind of in that same vein is that they have allowed the main character to be a kid.
Yes. And absolutely. I think that's been one of my favorite things, is because a lot of times kind of teen dramas, especially your more sort of like CW brand of teen dramas, it gets really soapy. And I've enjoyed watching a 16-year-old who is much more like me at 16. And I was just enjoying being a kid. It's not like I didn't ever have a crush, or I didn't, but I wasn't mostly doing the drama scene. I was mostly just, enjoying my life,
Yeah.
and it's not that it's always easier, and not that it's never angsty, but it's a little bit more the teenage experience I hope my kids will have than the ones that sometimes show up on TV.
Very much feels like something
Yeah.
from the old TGIF days.
Yes.
It's and I'm glad like that's something that's really been missing for a long time. And it kind of goes back to what Marisha was saying a minute ago. Like, the one of the hallmarks of really good shows like this geared towards kids, it should still be watchable for the family. And
Mhm.
this hits all the right notes. Um, Now let's talk about just kind of the general uh, kind of themes here, because I know there are a lot of things that I'm not. There are a lot of cultural things here that I just don't have the ability to pick up on. But I went out of my way last night to watch all sorts of uh, reaction shows with
Mhm.
Pakistani, Indian, both people in Pakistan and people that are living in the United States,
Mhm.
but have had that immigrant experience.
Mhm.
And I grew up with those immigrant parents and kind of got their reactions. And a lot of them started off hesitant or unsure that it would be done well and done justice. But
Mhm.
pretty much across the board, the reactions that I saw to it were fantastic.
And that's always an interest, like for me as someone who, has a completely different culture, like it's one thing for me to look at that and go like, okay, I mean that seems to be well done. It seems to be interesting. But and there are also sometimes that I'll see, my culture and being American and Southern, there are representations that I see sometimes of the South in media, and I'm like, I mean, like, what like caricature of 1930s Atlanta did you like happen upon that you think this is how life works? So I feel like there's always a risk of portraying, you know, cultures to an audience at large that it doesn't resonate with the culture that it's about. And I am glad that it's resonated, that it's
Yeah.
resonating with the culture, because that's really important. Like, yeah, it's important that it be something that my kids can enjoy and relate to, but
Mhm.
also whenever you're telling stories about other cultures, and I think it's significant that they have a lot of people, um, South Asians involved in the project.
Yeah.
But it's really important that the people who are being represented feel that they're being represented well
Yeah.
and accurately. I know. Wonder Woman, it's great.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And like I said, there are cultural things that I'm just not going to pick up on because they're not really meant for me. But at the same time, like I was talking to Marisha about this before we started, like, especially since I was at least partially raised by my grandparents, and being raised in a very religious household in the South, there are a lot of pretty remarkable similarities to the way her parents react to the things she does.
Mhm.
Like, so there are a lot of things there, despite that not being exactly my experience. There are a lot of things that I go, yeah, I get that like
Mhm.
completely.
Like, sure, you can go as long as you manage to, as long as you agree to wear something that goes all the way up to your collarbone and to your wrist bone, and,
Right. Well, in
is it
those
too
those
tight around?
groups, like when they do
Yes.
the Eid,
Mhm.
the big, kind of party that they
Right.
have, the big festival they have there, like all those groups that they name, yeah, they definitely exist in the church too. Like it's
If you've ever been going to a potluck, going to a church potluck, those people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But really like so let's kind of back up. Like, I mean, you're really enjoying the show,
I
right?
am. I'm really enjoying the show. I'm really enjoying I think I would enjoy it just by myself, but I'm
Mhm.
especially enjoying it with my family. And as at the stage that I am in life, that's a really important part of my enjoyment of a property like this is how much can I enjoy it with my kids. And I think they're enjoying it even more than I am.
Oh,
Like,
they're loving it.
they're
And
loving it. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. But they're like,
no, well, we sent them to their grandparents to spend the night tonight. And they are all very, like, normally they're all about going to grandma's to spend the night. But tonight they were very scared that I was going to get up in the morning and watch Miss Marvel and Kenobi without them. So
you promised you wouldn't watch it.
I
I
prom-
made no such promises.
yeah, but everybody knows you're not going to stay up that late.
I could. You don't know. Maybe I'll decide to stay up and, you know.
But just kind of overall, what are the things that you're really enjoying the most about the series?
I am really enjoying, yes, Bro kind of just hit that nail on the head. This girl is just so she's great. She's just, you know, her dancing around her house, you know, doing her, you know, doing
That
her moves. Oh my God. Like,
yeah, that
Nerd
was
Girls
right out
Unite
of
here, y'all. This is just like, this is my like teenage self, you know, like I was never much of a singer, but I sure would, you know, get down with some get, you know, and she's just delightful. She's just got this effusive smile. I'm enjoying just her, you know, her childlike, you know, quality that she's got. Like she doesn't feel like she has to be, you know, so cool and suave and, you know, grown up and make this like edgy in any way. She's killing it.
yeah.
And really enjoying her character. Like I said, especially, and I've got girls that are almost that age now, and I hope that they get to hold on, you know, they're so innocent, you know,
Right.
and I hope that they get to keep that. So yes, yes, that is an excellent point, Ro, because I think that's one of the things that you start to realize whenever you interact with people who have different life experience than you is like, wow, how many things we have in common. You know, there are lots of different experiences in the world, but you know, I think there are so many things that make us the same. And sometimes we forget that in the trappings of like, that's different or that's weird or that's, you know,
Right.
that's so
And
foreign.
well, in this whole thing, especially like coming out of a time period where, well, you know, going back, starting with 9/11,
Mhm.
and then the fact that we've really been at war to some extent with Middle Eastern Muslim nations for
A long
a
time.
really long time now, like so long that the kids of the people that originally went to war are going now. Um, that's insane.
Yeah.
And so there's you know you get all this stuff where you kind of look at these people and you go, I don't have anything in common with these people.
Right.
And then you watch this show and like, yeah, it's a TV show. It's not like real, but like you watch these things that I'm watching uh Pakistani and Indian people reacting to it and saying, "Oh yeah, that's exactly the way this
Mhm.
happens and this happens." And I'm going, they're not that different.
Mhm.
Like, you know, people are people wherever you go.
Yeah. And conservative, uptight parents are conservative and uptight no matter where they come from.
Very true.
So gives us we got about 4 years to be those exact conservative and uptight parents, right? Alas.
But I'm loving all those things that they're doing, and I'm not seeing. I know that it opened up as the least the worst viewer numbers for any MCU. I think not just any MCU show on Disney Plus. I think it might be the lowest numbers for any original Disney Plus content so far. Um, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I think there's several things going on, and I think the chief among them is that when you watch the trailers, like it's clearly geared more to kids.
Mhm.
And I think for starters, I know a lot of people are blaming the fact that it's released simultaneously with Kenobi. But let's not pretend like most people in this country don't watch like 6 hours of TV a day.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
like two shows coming out on the same day. I mean, if it was two shows coming out, one coming out on Netflix and one coming out on Disney Plus, you wouldn't make that argument.
Right.
So I don't think that people can't watch two shows on the same streaming service on the same day.
That would be us.
Right.
Yeah, we just
watch them back to back. But
so I was kind of looking, we were talking while we were coming home from dinner, and Andrew was like, I'm like, I'm seeing kind of people like complaining, like what is kind of the gripe? So I'm like, well, I don't know, but I bet Google knows. So here I am, what is, and honestly, most of the critical things that I was finding came out like months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah. Well,
Like there was a lot of kind of yang about this show before it came out. There was people complaining because they didn't feel like they were unhappy because some of the actors are biracial, or because they weren't quite I felt the actress
they weren't
Nakia,
ethnic enough.
They were either too white for some people
really,
or not, or too ethnic for some people. And that was honestly kind of hit the nail on the head of the complaint that people had. Some people were just kind of like, they're forcing it down our throats because they're not white. And then there were people who were like, well, they're not brown enough. And that was kind of seemed to be where most of the arguments centered around.
Yeah. I do agree with that, Nicole, that it didn't get enough attention in the marketing phase. And so a little bit of this is on Disney itself, but they had an uphill battle, because not only is it a show that's kind of got a very specific, niche that they're trying to appeal to, with, being the first one really made for a younger audience. It's also, in addition to that, it's a brand new character. Like, this is a character that most people don't know. Like, the comic books have been fairly well received. Like, as far as the new Marvel characters that have been introduced over the last decade or so, this is probably the one that has been received the best. I would really, if I were to look at new young characters in Marvel Comics that have actually had a good reception, I would say that is Miles Morales and Miss Marvel, Kamala
those
Khan.
are the ones you mostly hear people talking about.
Yeah.
I know there have been a lot of younger characters that they've kind of gone in and done, the newer versions of the characters have been much younger, or, but those two seem to be the ones that have kind of gotten the most traction.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. And really, if you look at the way these characters were created, the way their stories are written, the way they appeal to certain emotions, specifically with both of those characters, they really play well on what the original what made Spider-Man successful originally was that it was written for kids, for that teenage demographic going through the kind of the hard parts of being a teenager.
Right. And there have kind of been some, things like, oh, it's like a cookie cutter story. Like, in some ways, being a teenager is kind of a cookie cutter experience.
I mean, I agree. There are some things that are cookie cutter about it, but I would say that the things that they're doing with really showcasing a culture are definitely not cookie cutter.
No.
I mean, we're getting a straight up Bollywood moment in tomorrow's episode. I don't know if you saw that trailer. Yeah,
no, that's fun.
No, they're doing like a whole Bollywood wedding thing.
Oh, because we have the wedding, right? We got the brother's wedding. I mean, and I do kind of wonder, because I know we kind of talked about some influences that we're familiar with that seem stylistically similar, like, Edgar Wright and things like that. And I do wonder what really specifically Pakistani or Indian influences, since they have, I think their cinema tends to be kind of tied up together in a lot of ways.
Well, I
I
mean,
wonder
they
specific.
produce more. They
Oh, yeah.
produce more movies a year than Hollywood.
So I really wonder if maybe there are some kind of stylistic things that have influence in even places that we're just not familiar with at all. Oh my God. I got the biggest kick out of the reference. That, shoot, what's his name? The guy from the Eternals, the actor who used his whole dynasty.
Kingo,
yes. My mom's a big fan of Kingo Senior. We're gonna be all creeped out, like, ew.
Yeah, well, that was the best part because it's like, oh, she's still in love with Kingo Senior. It's like, it's this thing, yeah. Like, and it just, funny. But it's this really funny picture of like how we look at the things that our parents are really into.
You're like, ugh.
Like, because my kids, like my oldest, is just now kind of starting to like, oh, you're really into that thing. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, so yeah, I mean that's just a really, really funny take on kind of the way we look at the things our parents are into. Because they're not that different. It's just generational.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I'm really excited to see. I mean, I think this character is going to be a really fun addition to the MCU, kind of beyond the show.
Oh, I think so too. And knowing that there's they haven't announced anything, but a Young Avengers either series or movie is definitely coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, the actress, like, she has no prior experience acting. Like, it's just,
yeah, it's impressive.
I don't think you're actually alone there, Chantel.
No, I was.
But I feel like a lot of the things that Miss Marvel, that Captain Marvel did wrong, this show's doing right. And I actually watched some really, really interesting, a really interesting breakdown from a writer's standpoint on Captain Marvel recently. That was kind of saying like Ms. Marvel's goals are more, I mean, Captain Marvel's goals and her trajectory is really more in line with a villain in the way that she approaches things than with the hero. And that's why, their theory was that's why people had such a visceral reaction to the character.
And also, all of the marketing for Captain Marvel was so preachy.
Right. Well, that's one of the things we talked about. Like, I don't feel like this one did. I know everybody, there's the buzzword. It's woke. It's the MCU. I don't feel like there's any of that going on here. I don't feel like an agenda is being pushed.
No.
I just feel like it's this really nice, fun, refreshing sort of a palate cleanser after Moon Knight.
Right. Which was like,
I think the powers are really fun. I think that, they did a lot to bring the powers more in line with the cosmic stuff. And we still haven't gotten a full, like right now we know that her powers are still evolving.
Yeah.
There was an interview with the directors and they're basically saying like, this is her first learning to use the powers, but they're still going to evolve. I know there's some people that are upset that they changed. Her powers were a lot more like Mr. Fantastic, different but similar. Yeah. But they really wanted to make them more energy based. So because we've got that the Marvels movie coming.
Well, and that's the thing. They're trying to tie it all together a little more tightly, I think. And I think that we're going to find that her object of power is some way tied to the who are the people who Captain Marvel was all doing the stuff with. Clearly I was super into that movie. The Kree? Was she with the Kree?
Okay. She thought she was Kree.
She thought she was Kree. Okay. There we go. So I think that the Bengal is going to turn out to be Kree. See, I was thinking Kree, but I was like, no, it's somebody else. Okay.
I think you're probably right because the Kree are the ones that created the Inhumans. And odds are that she is going to be an Inhuman.
Yeah.
I really think, what do you think when she first puts the bangle on and she kind of like, it's like the world flips upside down for a moment and she kind of passes through this other realm. What did you think?
I mean, my initial assumption is like those are dead ancestors
Yeah.
or ancestors,
I think it's
presumably.
another ancestral
I
plane.
think
Like
it's yeah, I think it's some
we
kind of
have the ancestral plane in Black Panther, and then in Moon Knight they pointed out like this is just one of many kind of afterlives.
yeah.
Um, and kind of an ancestral plane. And so I
Mhm.
think this is her ancestral plane.
I
So I
mean, and
love this conversation about cheese in the chat here. Y'all are killing me.
it's pretty great. But no, I assumed that it was some kind of that it was some sort of ancestor,
Yeah.
because I mean, since obviously the Bengal is, you know, tied to her ancestors, I assumed that it had something to do with. Although I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of wondering if I mean they seem to be going the Inhuman route, but I am wondering if maybe they're gonna go with that. They're not actually part Cree, because all those people didn't necessarily look human.
It's possible.
I mean, and that would be an interesting. That'd be an interesting. Ooh, do we think the mom knows the powers of the jewelry?
I do.
Yeah, she was pretty unimpressed.
I think that this is something she's been running from for a long time that she
Mhm.
wanted no part of.
Yeah. And now that it seems that we
And we
met
know
the grandma, it's like,
well
oh,
if that is who that is.
I think it is.
I think it is too, but like we haven't gotten that like concrete.
We haven't gotten it confirmed, but that's definitely like if it's not, that's definitely what they set us up to think.
Yeah.
Because like she was the person we kept, you saw her with the reaching the hand out. And then I mean it was clearly the same person. No, she didn't want her daughter anywhere near that stuff.
Now
And
I
honestly, I mean, if I were the parent, I might would be like, hmm, I don't know. Um, yes, the grandma was obsessed with the fantasy. And I wonder if maybe the grandmother didn't always use her powers for good.
the great grandmother.
The great grandmother, yeah.
Yeah, because I also get the impression that the grandmother never used the bangles.
Right. Well, and she like the path of stars, like that's clearly that hard light, right? Is that like she clearly used that to get her baby on the train.
Yeah.
But I kind of wonder if I honestly in some ways I kind of hope that they don't go the grandmother was a hero but was no one understood her and because it was olden times and people were intolerant then. I kind of hope that that's not the direction they go. I hope that maybe the grandmother's a little bit more of a complicated character and we get like
Well, the grandmother disappears during like one of the largest political and societal upheavals
yeah
in the history of India and Pakistan.
yeah yeah
And
um
I actually love that they addressed that. Like I didn't feel like they got overly political with
mhm,
the with that stuff,
with the
but
partition.
with the partition, but they addressed it. Like
Yeah.
that's fantastic because I think a lot of people in Western culture are totally unaware that that's even a thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially Americans. I wonder if maybe British are a little more aware of it because they
Well, it was
were
them that did it.
because it was
So
their fault. But yeah, I like that observation row. I
yeah.
mean, that I think that's a more interesting story.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it would also like, they said that she had another family and like if this if it's all going the direction they made us think it is, then yes, she absolutely did.
Yeah.
So,
So 2 episodes in, we haven't officially been introduced to a villain yet.
mhm.
I mean, we've been introduced to a couple people that could be the villain. Now we've still got a probably one of the bigger names still yet to be introduced.
We haven't seen Aramis Knight yet.
Right. Who, if you haven't watched Into the Badlands,
You should.
is a major character from that series. And
Not the best part of that series.
he's not the best part of that series.
But the series is awesome.
But the series is fantastic. Like if you like kind of fantasy, if you like fantasy storytelling and post-apocalyptic sci-fi, then like it's got everything you like.
Absolutely.
Not to mention it's very the fighting is very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Fantastic series. But we've still got that actor who I'm sure is going to play a role as an antagonist.
Yeah, I think he's like Red Dagger or something is the name I keep seeing thrown around.
Okay. So we've got that character coming. I'm not sure he's going to be the main antagonist.
Yeah.
What role do you think Damage Control is going to play here? Because they seem to be playing a different role than they were originally purposed.
Well, isn't that what government agencies do?
Well, yeah.
They're like, oh, we're here to do this benign thing. And next thing they know, they're like, oh, no, we're going to shoot you because you got superpowers. I mean, like for real. I mean, not that I'm cynical or anything. But I'm just saying. I didn't used to be cynical. I feel like I used to be an optimistic person, but I guess life happened.
COVID happened.
COVID happened. Oh my gosh.
I agree, Nicole. They've been working really hard to build this younger group, and we've still got a few that haven't been introduced yet that we've still got coming. But they're slowly putting all the pieces in place to make that happen.
Yeah. And I mean, every time something comes up, I'm like, okay, the next thing is going to be this announcement. It's kind of like the Fantastic Four. Like eventually we've got to be right. You know, eventually this has got to be the place where we see the Young Avengers, they're Fantastic Four, or somebody.
Or mutants.
And we keep being like, this is the thing. And then it's like, nope, not this thing. The next thing we're like, this is the one.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm not going to try to break down the whole episode because we didn't get the chance to do the first episode by itself. And I hate trying to fully break down 2 episodes consecutively.
Yeah.
But what is there anything so far that you haven't loved?
It seems like there was something like it seems like there's something that I was watching and I was like, eh. But honestly, in retrospect, I can't even really put a finger on anything that just kind of I found off-putting. How about you?
No, not really. I mean, there's nothing so far that just really like upsets me about this show. So what are your favorite things? Like the thing that I'm enjoying the most, like the story's fantastic. The actress is absolutely phenomenal. Like I can't wait to see her do more. But I'm really loving the use of visuals. It's what I was talking about earlier about, the very Edgar Wright type movie. Edgar Wright is fantastic at visuals and use of music. Like the 2 things that Edgar Wright does the best. And they're doing a lot of all the like the lights fading to hearts in the background, even the dance scene with the way they cut when she gets to the refrigerator and it goes back to normal until she shuts the door and then it goes straight back in.
Yep.
The way they keep doing that kind of stuff, the use of background imagery to show the text message conversations. All that is very, very Edgar Wright in the way he does that. I specifically think of Baby Driver, which is an amazing movie, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is maybe the most underrated comic book film out there. I also love that Ant-Man is a podcaster.
Yes, that's great. Oh, bye, Ro. Have fun on your con show. Wait, con? Like Wrath of Khan? Are we doing Star Trek? I want to come talk Star Trek. Anyway, thank you for coming.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, looky there. We got people. See, he loves Miss Marvel too. And honestly, I'm feeling okay. So the internet, especially YouTube, is all like, why Miss Marvel's the worst and everyone hates it. But I don't find that it's the worst or that anyone hates it. I'm sure there are people out there that hate it, but on the whole, I'm finding that people like it.
Yeah, I think it's a show that just not enough people have given a shot yet. And
Absolutely.
it's MCU. Over time that's going to change more. It's part of the MCU catalog. More and more people are going to watch it.
Mhm.
It's going to introduce important stuff.
Yep.
And people are going to come back to it, and over time it will build those numbers.
Yeah.
So
I
if
think so.
if Kenobi is part of the reason why it's not getting as many clicks, which I don't really, I think that's like maybe the smallest of the things that could be causing
Mhm.
it to not get the numbers. But it's going to catch up. Like people are going to come around and watch it,
Mhm.
and more people, especially more and more kids as we kind of get deep into the summer months.
Yes, and they get more and more bored.
Well, like around here, like you can't even go outside till it's 6
Man,
o'clock at night.
I mean,
now.
yeah, it's 110 degrees in the middle of the day. Like, can't even go swimming when it's that hot. No good. Yes, underrated. Absolutely, Chantel. I think it's underrated at this point and just kind of undiscovered.
Where would you rank it in the MCU Disney Plus stuff right now?
Disney Plus stuff.
Mine of your rankings are a little different on that anyway.
I think it beats Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I kind of hate to say because like they had South Louisiana happening in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Look, I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier, except for the parts that felt so unnatural, like Falcon's speech that feels like he spent a couple of days writing his speech before he had the opportunity to give it.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't feel natural. Like I don't have a problem with anything that was said in it. It just didn't feel organic.
Yeah. So I think it tops Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, I don't know about WandaVision on the whole. I really enjoyed the first few episodes of WandaVision, but it got so dark there. See, like it was so much fun there for a minute until you realize, like, oh no, this is all like trauma. I don't know. We have to think about that. I don't know. I think maybe.
Well, what's your top show?
I think WandaVision may still be my favorite.
Okay.
And then I think this one may beat out Hawkeye. I enjoyed Hawkeye, but I think this one is flying a little higher for me right now. So we'll have to see how it goes.
I still say like this. That's where we disagree. Is like Hawkeye is like my one spot.
Yeah.
I feel like Hawkeye, top to bottom, was the best story they've told in a Disney Plus series. It's just it flows. There's not any places where you go that could have been better. It's like it's very solid all the way through.
Yeah.
And it tells a concise story.
Yeah.
And I had WandaVision at number 2, but I do think I will boot WandaVision for this series at this point. If that's 2 episodes in,
right,
we still got a way to go. I could change it, but right now I'm getting the same vibes from this show that or what made me love Hawkeye, which was it's just very good storytelling.
Yep. And I think I think you kind of where'd it go? I think you kind of summed it up here, Josh. They're doing a good job of packaging something different inside something familiar.
Yeah.
And especially stories for kids, that's the formula that makes people feel, especially for a story that's just kind of a little more low key. I think that's important.
Yeah. And I agree.
And people need stories that are just kind of safe right now.
I agree. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a show that's just fun. Some of my favorite things Netflix has done over the last couple of years, things like Red Notice. Right. It's not a great movie. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a real throwback to like 80s action flicks. Yep. It's just a fun, just sit down, turn your brain off and watch it.
Loki, I forgot about Loki. See, yeah. I really liked Loki.
See, Loki's way up there for me too. I actually probably rank Loki ahead of WandaVision, except for I'm not sure the stuff that happened in Loki doesn't seem to be coming back into play the way that I felt like it ought to.
That's fair.
Like I felt like some of that should have come into play in the Doctor Strange stuff, and it didn't.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like they've got Loki out here, and it's like totally separate side story. And now I'm going, is it even in the same timeline?
Right, which is like it feels like it ought to be.
Well, but when he goes back, we created a new branch.
See, this is why I don't like time travel. No, I really, really like time travel. About this much of it. As long as it's its own thing. But the minute that you start dragging time travel into all your other sci-fi, I don't like it. Like there have been a couple of shows that were just timeless was fun, but that's all it did was time travel. Yes, it's so confusing. I don't like when they start throwing time travel into my other sci-fi. I don't like time travel when it comes into play in Star Trek. I didn't like it whenever it looked like they were going to want to go that direction in Star Wars. I don't like it because it makes the story too hard to tell.
Agreed.
Yes. See? So confusing.
Well, I feel like time travel, not just time travel anymore. I feel like there's a real danger in the whole multiverse thing.
Because now you don't have any stakes.
Well, there are stakes of
Well-
losing a character that we love. Like just because there's a variant doesn't mean that variant's not very different.
But
And-
you can always bring in an almost identical variant. And then
You can. Although we are going to
yes.
there's sort of a safety net that they're building in place though
Mhm.
with the what is the term they're using to multiverses colliding?
Oh,
The convergence?
convergence, yeah, I think.
So if you go to a different timeline and stay there too long, you can basically destroy both realities.
Right, so you can't. Yes, time travel and multiple universes become cop outs.
Agree.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's a good plot device when used properly, but it just gets.
I
so
feel like
convoluted.
it's this thing where I don't know. I like time travel stories.
Mhm.
Terminator, fantastic, at least for the first two. After that,
Yeah,
and that's a prime example. After the first two with Terminator, they just kind of lost track of how the time travel worked at all.
it's like Doctor Who.
But like Back to the Future. Like Back to the Future
Yes.
is a movie series built completely on the premise of time travel.
Yes,
And that works because that's what it's built around. But I feel like when you try to, like Stargate, one of my favorite sci-fi series, maybe my favorite sci-fi series of all time.
Mhm.
There are moments where they interject time travel in there. Fortunately, in those, they kept it simple and you don't walk away going, I'm so confused. I don't understand anything that happened
Mhm.
anymore. They just went very old school, simple, like go back, fix the thing that went wrong, or keep the thing from happening
Yes,
and come back. So,
right.
um,
So we have an assertion here that they're going to fix. So Secret Wars is what is the secret? Do you know anything about the Secret Wars storyline?
not a lot, but I agree. I think there's several things happening. I think Miss Marvel, there was some speculation that she wouldn't be an Inhuman because they messed up so bad with that Inhuman series. But
Yeah.
I will remind you, like Kevin Feige doesn't even recognize that like he didn't make that. That was when the two things that did Marvel were split. TV was one thing that was run by someone else,
Right.
and he was just movies.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, they turned around and gave him the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to serve as their do-over to introduce Inhumans. Even though we already had Black Bolt in Doctor Strange,
Mhm.
they didn't really tell us anything about Inhumans. We just said, "Hey, here's the king of the Inhumans," and they killed him 5 seconds later. But
Well, I mean, that was like, it was like, and here's Professor X, and here's Mr. Fantastic. It was
Right.
like boom, boom, boom. All these things people have been clamoring for
so
20 years,
I
and
think
they're
we
like,
can
we
just
killed them all.
right. So I think this is going to be Kevin Feige's way of reintroducing Inhumans.
Mhm.
And shining a brighter light on that story.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a lot of things that are just purely chaotic right now. And I think that this is what Josh is talking about here, where all this chaos is going to build towards this moment where we're going to reorganize
Okay.
everything. So I don't think the intention is to leave everything in chaos. It's just that we've got to give it a new order.
Right.
It's kind of a way of changing the MCU, but doing it through story. And so phase 4 is kind of serving as this shaking things up. And Kevin Feige came out yesterday or today and made some comments that at the end of phase 4, where the next saga will become much more clear
That makes
by the end of
sense.
this phase. And that makes sense. That's fine. I know a lot of people are going, well, I thought that was already supposed to be clear, but like we didn't really know what was going on in the first saga until like phase 2, middle of phase 2.
Yeah.
So
basically it sounds like it's another group that's sort of looking to have something along what they had the sacred timeline that they had in Loki. They're looking to sort of watch different versions of the characters fight for supremacy. So they're kind of trying, is that how you think they're going to streamline it? They're basically going to kind of, that's interesting.
Yeah.
They want to pick and choose which characters to, I mean, that's,
no, I agree. So thanks for that info, Josh, because my normal comic book gurus, neither one of them are here tonight because like I like comic books fine, but I'm not very well read in them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like you said, I'm glad that we had somebody in the chat to give us, because I was like, I mean, I hear people talk about Secret Wars, but not enough information on it
so we've got a lot of that kind of stuff coming later. We've got they're clearly working towards Secret Wars. Kang is coming, which means the Fantastic Four are coming, Doom is coming.
That's the thing, like Kang's got to eventually show up in the MCU, like outside the TV, like in a movie, right?
Yeah. But at some point we've got to, I mean, Kang's going to be a major villain in the next Ant-Man film.
Yes. Dr. Doom. I am familiar with Dr. Doom from Superhero Squad. Yes, this is my information about Marvel characters that are not in the MCU. It's because of my kids' obsession with Superhero Squad.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, I feel like we're kind of at a point where we should wrap up. And as we get into the rest of these episodes, we did talk about this show with our kids. So over on the podcast, there's actually, and I will put a link to that in this description, where we did an episode of the Padawan Report with the kids, kind of kicking that back off, talk about this show. And
interesting thing, we were like, okay, we're going to talk about Ms. Marvel, and then we're going to talk about Obi-Wan. And they like had tons of stuff to say about Ms. Marvel. Like, all right, let's talk about Obi-Wan. And they were like, what happened? I don't remember. But I think that because I mean, as much as our kids love Star Wars, they're clearly much more invested in this story.
Yeah.
So, the daggum Obi-Wan episode didn't even get recorded because they couldn't remember anything about it.
Yeah, so we'll record with them tomorrow though after the finale. Yeah. We'll just do it directly after the finale.
Oh, Chantel, listen to our Padawans. They are cute, aren't they? I think they're cute. I know I'm a little partial, but
all right. Was there anything else you wanted to add about the story before we wrap up for the night?
I don't think so. I'm just really excited to see where the story is going to go. I'm really enjoying it. I think they're doing a good job. And I think they're telling a story that is universal and also very specific. And I mean, those are the best kind of stories, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. All right. And it sounds like we've got some, Josh is still giving us some updates on where he thinks we're going to be going.
Yeah. No, I think Dr. Doom is going to be a big one. It's one they got to get right.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours aren't that big yet. It doesn't mean they can't be jerks sometimes.
But they're mostly sweet.
Thanks, Chantel. Thanks for stopping in. And yeah, thanks to everybody that came in the chat tonight. It's great having y'all all here.
Yeah, the chat was great.
It's always a little more fun doing this when there's people to converse with in the chat.
Absolutely.
So, Marisha, where can people find you online?
You can find. I mean, okay. Are we being honest, or are
No,
we giving the theoretical?
No, but you give them your Instagram because you're
Okay.
fixing to start working on Dragon Con
It's true.
costumes.
All right. So I am on Instagram at princesses_and_Padawans, and he's not wrong. Keep people being like, "Have you finished your Dragon Con costumes?" I'm like, "No, I've got 10 of them to make, and I haven't started any of them." So that's what we're doing here for the next couple of weeks. So yes, you can find my progress on Instagram.
By the next couple of weeks, she means from now until Labor Day weekend.
Frantically, my kids are going to learn to sew. It's official. They keep inviting cousins to like join in the fun, and that means said people need costumes, and one person can only do so much. So
True.
there we go. You can watch me. Yeah, you can watch me bug out on Instagram.
All right, guys. But thanks again for joining us in the chat. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at @Sci_Fictionary. And as always, you can find our podcast as well as the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter.
That's us.
All right. And until next time, may the force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.